Maniacs, welcome back to the channel. Your local bedhead here. We are going to be diving into something that I have not watched in a good long minute, I would say. This is Serial Killer Files. Serial Killer Files, Dennis Nilsen. I have, to my knowledge, never heard of this guy, so this is going to be obviously a learning experience for me, and hopefully you guys too. Maybe some of you already know who this man is, but we're going to find out. So yeah, if you like this type of content, want to see this kind of content continue, you guys know the drill. Get this video up to over 100 likes, and I will continue Serial Killer Files for as long as you guys possibly want me to. I have reacted to these guys before. It's probably a good thing that I let you guys know that when it comes to serial killer stuff, I am very genuinely fascinated and learning about a lot of it, but at the same time, when it goes into a descriptive detail about some of the murders, especially even coming out of the mouths of like some of the serial killers themselves, it really is some disturbing shit, and even then, without that kind of context, it's still really extremely disturbing for me to really kind of sit down and not get emotionally affected by it. So regardless of what you think about me being a softie or whatnot, it is just something that actually affects me just listening to. I guess that is overall a part of the reaction, and you know, that's just my honesty. That is just me coming through, and regardless of what you think of it, it just is what it is. So as long as you're okay with that, let's go ahead and dive into Dennis Nilsen, Serial Killer Files number 1.
Welcome to a special edition of Seriously Strange I like to call the Serial Killer File,
Hey,
where
Rob.
we occasionally take a Wednesday to discuss a serial killer. This week's episode is about a man commonly referred to as the Kindly Killer or the British Jeffrey Dahmer. His name is Dennis Nilsen. Let's open the Serial Killer File.
That's a hell of a thing to be called. The British Jeffrey Dahmer. Didn't that look like Josh Dub a little bit? Dennis Nilsen from the Serial Killer Files.
Security is an important thing in life, and there are people out there we entrust to provide us with it. Dennis Nilsen was, unfortunately, one of these people. Dennis Nilsen was born in Scotland in 1945. As a young boy, Dennis didn't have a sunny home life. His father preferred spending time away, leaving Dennis without ever truly knowing who his father was. Eventually, his parents divorced and his mother remarried to a man Dennis wasn't very fond of. The only person Dennis truly connected with when he was young was his grandfather. His entire life revolved around the love and appreciation he held for him. Dennis's grandfather was a fisherman who sometimes spent days out at sea, while Dennis was left eagerly awaiting his return.
I gotta say, whenever the parents are like shitty parents, I gotta say, it's always the grandparents that come through at the end of the day and try to help as much as they can. Hell, there are even grandparents in the world that love their grandchildren even more than their own children. Oh yeah, there are many stories about situations like that, which is just crazy in my opinion. You know, love your kids, even grandchildren, all equally is how I would want to or expect that it should be. But unfortunately, no, not in every case. And I also find it to be a recurring theme where if the parents are not involved with the kid's life, for the most part, it can have some really big psychological effect on the kid, especially like whether like his father not being there for him and always gone and whatnot. I mean, that is like a reoccurring theme with other serial killers too, actually.
He spent a lot of time by himself at the ocean just waiting for his grandfather to come back like he did every time, so that they might take walks together again and spend so much time bringing each other the happiness that Dennis felt was in such short supply in the other aspects of his life. But that came to a halt one fateful day when Dennis's grandfather, while at sea, suffered a heart attack and died. Dennis had no closure. He simply lost the most precious person in his life. Dennis emotionally shut down and was typically unreachable by his family. He was crushed. Dennis continued to spend time by the ocean, sometimes soaking his feet in the water. One day, he went a little too far and was soon sucked underwater and dragged out to sea. He recalled struggling frantically to reach the surface of the water before eventually coming to terms with his own demise. He stopped fighting and felt a sudden calmness overcome him. He let himself go. Fortunately, or perhaps unfortunately, a hand broke through the surface of the water. Someone nearby had seen his plight and rescued him moments before he drowned. Years later, like most boys do, Dennis began to feel sexual desires. He felt that he might have been homosexual as he found a lot of other boys attractive. This, however, transitioned to him molesting his older brother while he slept. Dennis eventually enlisted in the military and he spent 11 years there. Dennis became a very heavy drinker, trying to fill
Yikes was an understatement. That is fucked up.
The inner emptiness he felt. It was here, getting drunk with friends, that he realized the desire to be taken advantage of. He began fantasizing about his friends sexually molesting him while he was passed out drunk, and at times would fake being inebriated as to try to tempt one of his friends into taking advantage of him. However, his desires moved far past this, and he began to fantasize about engaging in sexual acts with his friends while they were unconscious or dead. After the military, Dennis spent some quality time with his family in 1972. Eventually, however, the topic of Dennis's suspected homosexuality came to light, and he was vilified by his older brother for it. Dennis cut off communication entirely with his brother and seldom even spoke to his family ever again. Loneliness began to take over in Dennis's life as he had no one. He attempted to form relationships with other men, but all of them failed. He took a job as a police officer in London that he held for around a year, entrusted to keep the public safe from people like the one he was so close to becoming. With all of his failed relationships, he realized he was spending too much time focused on his job and resigned from the police service in 1973, taking up a job as a security guard. He held this job until his arrest. Dennis continued to drink heavily and frequented gay bars looking for a companion to diminish his loneliness.
Wow.
Company was so important to Dennis, and
he really is sounding like the British Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, almost spot on the same exact kind of story going on here.
The fact that he would become willing to kill to keep it. In 1978, he made the decision to take matters into his own hands in order to see to it that he was never lonely
Even the same
again.
glasses.
Dennis didn't have too much trouble in luring his potential love interest home with him with promises of alcohol and other less than reputable indulgences like drugs. A number of men went willingly, and at least 12 of them never left his residence. They would instead become part of it and provide Dennis with exactly what he was looking for: resistance-free companionship. No arguments, no breakups, no breathing. He had an obsession with choking his victims to death, either with his bare hands or with the use of a tool like a necktie or wire. He would often wait for his victims to let down their defenses. Alcohol and drugs did a wonderful job at that. Sometimes while his victim was using, he would come up behind and strangle them to death. Other times, he'd wait for them to pass out from overindulgence before he launched his attack. As his victims snapped awake, they would realize that they were going to die. He'd wait for them to lose consciousness and from there, force them either into his bathtub or shove their head into a bucket of water to drown them. He'd perform a ritual with each body where he would bathe them before either performing sexual acts with them or dissecting and dismembering them. He started by stuffing bodies under his floorboards, but once he had no space left, he'd begin burning them in a bonfire late at night. Eventually, he'd remove their heads and boil them until their skin came off. He'd chop up their bones and take buckets of liquefied flesh and muscle to flush down his toilet. He moved a number of times during his killing career, so the bonfire became no longer possible at some point. This new fillet and flush approach was the only way he saw fit, aside from disposing of large bones like femurs out with the garbage. Dennis was an opportunist like most efficient predators are. However, Dennis's behavior was strange, even for him. When he failed to kill one man, even after strangling and trying to drown him, he ended up nursing the man back to health, telling him that he hadn't tried to strangle him at all, that the sleeping bag his victim was sleeping in somehow got its zipper wrapped around his neck, and that he was trying to free the man. This victim foolishly didn't report anything to police after he was let go. Perhaps even weirder was the case of an epileptic man who had collapsed just outside of Dennis's home. The man claimed that his medication had made his legs extraordinarily weak and that he couldn't walk. Dennis assisted the man and brought him into his residence. Of course, he strangled and killed him right then and there, right? Not quite. No, Dennis kept the man comfortable and actually phoned an ambulance, who came and retrieved the man. Brought to better health, the man was released from the hospital the following day and returned to Dennis's home to thank him for his help. Dennis smiled and invited him inside, where he strangled him to death before stuffing his body in a cupboard, not having enough room under his floorboard.
That is the fucking most craziest thing right there. He literally saves this man's life. You know, being already a serial killer, saves this man's life. The guy comes back to thank him for what he did. And then he just does a 180 and completely murders him. Like, holy shit, this guy had some serious mental issues. Holy hell. Yeah, he makes no sense. I mean, he's crazy. I mean, that's obvious.
Anymore. Eventually, Dennis and the rest of the residents of the building he lived in began to experience severe plumbing problems. Dennis, oddly enough, took it upon himself to contact estate agents to investigate the clog, which prevented him from further disposing the bodies. A great blunder, considering that all of the flushed remains were the reason it was clogged to begin with. This investigation led to the capture and imprisonment of Dennis Andrew Nilsen in 1983. Dennis is currently serving a life sentence and is 68 years old. That's all in this file, but be sure to keep a lookout for the next serial killer file. If you have a suggestion for a serial killer for a future episode, feel free to tweet it to me at @TheRobDyke. And don't forget to subscribe because you won't want to miss what's next.
I gotta say, it's very interesting. I'm not sure if the guy's still alive today. Dennis Nilsen. Actually, one sec. I'm gonna look that up really quick, because that'd be something interesting to find out. He's probably old as hell now, if he's still alive. Dennis Nilsen. Nope, he died in 2018, so he's no longer alive. He died in York Hospital, United Kingdom. Yeah, he does have that Jeffrey Dahmer-esque story going on behind him. He really does. Memories of the Murderer on Netflix, the Nilsen tapes. I had no idea he even had a serial killer tapes on Netflix. Like, there was a part of him that I felt like wanted to be a just standard person of society, just a natural, you know, person of the community, where he would try to help people fix problems. You know, no, don't worry, there's a clog in the drains or there's a clog in the plumbing. I'll go ahead and call somebody to get it fixed, even knowing he was the cause of it, and risking his own, you know, freedom. He just, and like helping that one guy get away, basically, like calling an ambulance, getting someone over there, got him, and then he brought him back and, you know, got killed. Kind of reminded me of the story with the little kid with Jeffrey Dahmer, how this little kid was drugged by Jeffrey Dahmer and he made it out. And then the police pretty much let him go back in, and then Jeffrey Dahmer killed him, which is one of the most heartbreaking, it should never have happened situations if the police actually knew how to do their effing jobs. But in this situation, they actually got him out of there. They helped him. The guy returns. Dennis kills him after Dennis had saved him, basically. Just unbelievable. That guy, I just almost can't read. But that's kind of the scary part about serial killers themselves, is that they just have those moments of just snapping and then acting completely normal. I'm sure a lot of people here already knew about Dennis. I just hadn't heard of him. So if you have any more information and maybe any more recommendations for this certain serial killer and you want to recommend them to me in the comment section, go ahead and do so. Leave a like again if you guys want to see more content like this. I will go ahead and react to more serial killer files, especially if you enjoy them. If you don't enjoy them, that's fine too. But get this video over 100 likes. Go support the original video, obviously. And let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. But until next time, guys, do take care.
JCARTSARTS is throwing down, coming after all these paranormal clowns. He's watching, not letting get away. On his way, JCARTSARTS, tearing the fakers apart. He with his heart, no one dare tell him can't react, because JCARTS has your back. JCARTSARTS has your back. JCARTSARTS is throwing down. coming after me. If you can't, 3 cards, answers through